Hello and welcome into the Take 10 podcast. This is Alex Roux of Big Ten Network, and this week's guest is former Michigan State basketball star Maurice Ager. Let's get into it.
Take a look, listen, and enjoy. Look at here.
With the catch, the finish! Oh, my goodness! What a catch!
Oh,
Energy,
my goodness.
enthusiasm. It's picked off! It's selfish! Brilliant!
He's still going. Touchdown!
All right, we'll get to Maurice in just a second. First off, I want to get a word from our sponsor, Northwestern University School of Professional Studies. If you've ever thought about a career in sports, check out the master's program in sports administration at Northwestern University. You can build your skill set and your network in evening or online classes. Find out more at sps.northwestern.edu/sports. As always, I want to sing the praises of that program. Great opportunity for someone wanting to work in sports, wanting to work at a place like Big Ten Network. Definitely check it out. As you wrap up listening to this podcast, definitely check that out on the NUSPS site. All right, getting into today's guest, quick rundown. It is Mo Ager from Michigan State. First up, we do have Harold Shelton, another Michigan State guy, jumping on after Mo. If you listen to the podcast regularly, you know Harold talks Big Ten football and basketball with us, especially basketball this time of year. But first, we got Mo Ager. Definitely an interesting interview. He updates us on what he's been up to since playing for the Spartans about 15 years ago, so he's been up to plenty. Man of many interests, very entrepreneurial guy, and he gets into his current pursuits before talking about his memories at Michigan State. They had a Final Four run in 2005. He played a major role in that team and was instrumental in that tournament run to the Final Four, beating, as we talk about, coming up, Duke, Kentucky, and then eventually falling to North Carolina in the semifinals. So let's let Mo talk more about it. It's a Take 10 podcast interview with Maurice Ager, and it starts right now. All right, I'm very pleased to be joined by star swingman from Michigan State from 02 to 06. Made the Final Four in 05, first-round pick in 06. It is Maurice Ager. Mo, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Hey, man, appreciate you having me, man. It's all good.
Absolutely. I grew up watching you. This is like a golden era of Big Ten basketball for me.
Oh, yeah?
You with the Spartans, so it's cool to have you on. Appreciate you jumping on, and know you left an impression on me watching as like a 12, 13-year-old back in the day.
That's lit, man. Hey, that's actually good to hear, man. So I like to hear that type of stuff, bro, for sure.
Yeah, a little full circle. So update me, first of all. Obviously, your name is well-known in Big Ten circles, but update me and the rest of the audience, Big Ten listeners, on what you're up to these days and just what you've been doing since basketball came to an end.
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, shit, yeah. Well, obviously, man, everybody who's been in my circle since I was little, they understand that, I've always had a huge passion for music. Music has been a very, very influential thing in my life, man, ever since I was a child. So, pretty much after I retired in 2011, that was pretty much my big thing, so I went and pursued music, moved to LA and did some big things, had the opportunities to work with, guys like Dr. Dre and, been in the studio with some pretty prominent guys, Game, Big Sean, and this, that, and the other, worked with Royce 5'9", and which I released this year as an NFT, but I'll get to that a little bit later. But I had the consideration for a Grammy in 2013 for one of my songs, one of my own personal songs called Far From Home at that time. And and then, years later, I actually created the Maurice Ager School, which is a basketball enrichment program, youth basketball enrichment program, to help, kids with basketball skills, life enrichment skills and stuff like that, so we developed that back in 2000 and, that was 2013 as well. So I started that and I've been doing that ever since. As of late, just to, just give you a brief breakdown on everything, I created, right now we have the sports and music website. I have a new website. But prior to that, man, I actually started it's called the Maurice Ager School. I started a clothing line, a brand, and I was doing it for maybe 4 or 5 years, and then it got to a point in time where I kind of hit a wall. You know what I'm saying? Because when COVID hit, it just made things very difficult. Because I live in Vietnam now. I live in Hanoi, Vietnam. I've been living in Asia since 2017. I run into a lot of difficulties, as an entrepreneur, when it comes to like, shipments and, and then personal issues, so I had to put things down for a minute, man. I remember having a conversation with Damon John from FUBU. FUBU was a big thing at one point in time. And, he basically, he talked about, there's times where if your business isn't doing well, it's okay to put it down and just shut it down for some time being, and he talked about how he shut down FUBU for maybe two years or so he can get himself together, so he can restructure his business and come back stronger. And, he told me that when I was living in Los Angeles, back in like 2014 or sometime like that. And it kind of stuck with me, as an entrepreneur. So, when I was doing my line, with the sports and music, Mo Ager Hoop School and stuff like that, I had to, take a step back and, really restructure things and really do it better this time, develop a team. At one point in time I was doing that. I already have a team, it was hard to do it by myself. And, it became very difficult. So I'm really grateful at this point in time that I was able to, use the COVID as a gateway to actually build my team and build a more sustainable infrastructure when it come to what I was trying to do. So now I have what we call the sports and music with Mo Ager, man, which consists of, sports, music, and technology. I'm really heavy on the NFTs. I'm really heavy into the crypto space. So now that, I've learned a lot about, the market and how the market is working, and especially in this new world, everything has changed. So now I have the website called Sports and Music with Mo Ager, which, is a clothing website. People can go in there and, and buy merchandise. You can customize merchandise as well. We have a lifestyle brand as well. And on top of that, people can go in there and hear my music. It's a one-stop shop. You dig what I'm saying? So it took some time. I finally put together a solid team that know what they're doing, that can help me bring my goals to life instead of me actually running around here as a one-man band, man, you know what I'm saying, and expecting to be successful. It just doesn't work that way. So now, I have the website, and you can go there, and we have NFTs. I created my NFT lines from memorable moments, of course, Michigan State days, my NBA days, and just lifestyle stuff like that. I create NFTs for comedians, other professional athletes as well, who's played in the NBA, overseas, and the whole nine, and various leagues around the world. It's a one-stop shop. Like I said, man, you can go there and get everything you need. Anything Mo Ager is right there. And I just created the NFT course as well. And that's why I'm really excited to do this interview, because I wanted to actually tell people about the course on how to create your own business, because a lot of people have questions, because I've been doing fairly well in this early space of the NFT space. And, now that I put together, some sales and been doing some cool things, I have a course to teach people how to do it themselves. You know what I'm saying? So I'm launching that today, actually. And that's on my website. But most importantly, man, I was able to learn over these years, what it means to be an entrepreneur outside of basketball, because, I play basketball my whole entire life. And then you finally get to a stage in your life where you want to do other things. That was my main thing. I really wanted my time to explore life, to create new avenues for myself. Not neglecting my foundation from basketball, but, adding on to my foundation from basketball and discovering, more about myself and life in general. And I was able to do that since, since 2011, man. It's been a solid 10, 12 years or so where I've been able to really get to it. You know what I'm saying? Those scary moments where you're really learning how to, live life without something you're used to your whole entire life. So yeah, I'm really proud of where I'm at right now. The story isn't over, but once again, man, this website is going to be dope, bro. I'm going to continue to build it and grow it and cultivate it. But other than that, man, I've traveled all over the world, man. I've been on the speaking circuit. You know what I mean? I've done basketball camps in continents all over the world. And I've had a pretty interesting life nonetheless. But but I'm still hungry for more, bro. So I'm definitely excited about what's going to happen moving forward, especially in this new digital age. I'm a technology guy, so it's actually feeling like this is my time to shine. You dig what I'm saying? So yeah, man, that's kind of where I'm at with it, man. And I'm just building.
Yeah, love hearing all about it. And there obviously seem to be a wide range of interests and stories and experiences that you've gone through. I'm going to get to it in a second. You mentioned Damon John. I know you got connections to Mark Cuban. That's like half the Shark Tank right there. So
absolutely.
I'll ask you about that in a moment, but
Okay.
before we even get to your Michigan State basketball career, I just want to talk about the time between Michigan State and pretty much now with, before all these business ventures. But you mentioned being in the same room as Dr. Dre, Big Sean, Mark Cuban,
Yeah.
Damon John, and we'll throw the NBA career in there. Like, what was maybe a situation where you were most, maybe not starstruck, but like, wow, okay, I'm really sitting in this room right now. It could be music related, could be Shark Tank, pre-Shark Tank related, it could be basketball related.
I would definitely have to say Dr. Dre for sure. Dr. Dre, that was definitely a moment where I was a little bit more excited because honestly, I've never been starstruck ever because coming from Detroit, we've seen, Motown and stuff like that. I mean, I feel like I've been around, celebrities and stuff like that from a small age. So it's like Dr. Dre was definitely one person that I was actually really excited to be around. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, because I really admired. He was one of the biggest inspirations musically, you know what I'm saying? Especially what he was doing with Eminem at one point in time. It's like, man, you know what I'm saying? I loved Eminem. I was a huge Eminem fan when I was growing up.
All right, man.
So I'm like, damn. Yeah. So it was easy for me to fall in love with Dr. Dre because I'm like, oh, this is what he's doing for him. So it's like, that was a huge deal, bro.
Yeah, for sure. Just ran through more of my childhood there. Obviously growing up, around when some of those albums came out. Big Eminem, Dr. Dre fan as well, especially at a young age. Do have to ask, about Mark Cuban, him being an Indiana guy, another Big Ten school. I saw he gave you a plug pretty recently. You posted on social media. What's he like to deal with in person? Obviously, drafted you, traded you. Obviously, no hard feelings. You guys are still in touch. So what's Cuban like?
Man, Cuban is a real down to earth dude, man. Real down to earth. I feel like, especially when I was when I was with the Dallas Mavericks, I feel like he took a liking to me because he saw how curious I was about other things in life. You know what I'm saying? Even on the plane as a rookie, my assigned seat was next to Mark Cuban, so I would pick his brain every day, man. And I don't ever remember talking to him about basketball. I used to always ask him about different business ventures and how was he. I just remember the funniest stories when we had these sidekicks, right? You know what I'm saying? You remember the sidekicks? You know what I'm saying? You type on the side. And, I would be like, yo, how the hell are you even talking on the phone right now, man? We all the way up in the air. Like, you ain't got the internet. I know you're rich, but you ain't got the internet right now. But he was like, nah, I would just write hundreds of emails and put them in my draft. So once I land, all I could do is press send, and it saves me a lot of time. You know what I'm saying? So he's like, I'm just always being productive. No matter where we at, I feel like, Mark Cuban was definitely a supporter, you know what I'm saying? Like I talked about the Morgan Hoop School earlier, a basketball enrichment program that I started. He was the one that actually, so yeah, that's a great idea. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it was me, obviously, but when I ran the idea by him, he still gave me his blessings and was like, yo, man, keep it going, keep pushing, because I'm sure I used to get on his nerves, bro. I used to hit up Cube all the time about different ideas that I was doing. He'd be like, I don't know about that one. And then he'd be like, So he was helpful, bro. He's definitely a player's GM. He's definitely a guy who's in tune with the now in terms of technology and where the world is heading in that regard. So I'm always gonna have respect for him just because he gave me a testimonial that I can use for the rest of my life. So I'm always going to respect Mark Cuban, not only outside of just drafting me and giving me my first professional look, but just the fact that he still shows some love after the basketball world, and a lot of people end up, falling off when, you're not playing ball no more. So
definitely share that entrepreneurial spirit for sure. As we can tell here. And you mentioned Detroit, right? And I got an inside source, actually helps me do the podcast. His name's Harold. He's our stats guy, and he's a big Spartan guy. Went to MSU.
yeah.
You guys are probably around the same age, close to it. And he went to Renaissance in Detroit. He wanted me to ask you about Crockett Renaissance games and that rivalry.
Yeah.
Plug.
Man, it was lit, bro. Especially when I was a sophomore. I transferred to Crockett when I was in 10th grade. And that's when they had Ricky Paulding. Ricky Paulding went to Missouri. And Rick P was like, he was the guy. He was the guy, period, bro. Like, the man would jump. Whew, boy. When I would tell you, them Renaissance games was like, it was a notch below playing against Illinois in that type of environment. It was so hostile. You felt like the fans was always on top of you. The games, they were roped off. It was like you was this close to like you know, it got real in Detroit, bro. Like if you didn't necessarily have some family or some goons with you in the crowd, man, those guys were ready to fight you, man. But Renaissance was tough, man. Rennie was tough, man. We're definitely one of the top 3 toughest schools in the city that we faced, you know what I'm saying? And then years later they had Malik Harrison, Joe Crawford. Those guys were tough, you know what I mean? 2 first round. No, they didn't go first round, but they ended up being college All-Americans, McDonald guys. So Renaissance was a great program, bro. Mark White, you know what I'm saying? He was one of the head coaches over there at the time. And and eventually, they used to kick me when I was a sophomore, and my junior year, we got them out of here, you know what I'm saying? We ended up winning the state championship. We had to go through Renaissance to get there.
I love hearing those stories, even though I don't know any points of reference between either school. I love hearing high school basketball stories, especially when, it's real on the court and maybe when you step off the court as well with some of the rivalries there. You mentioned,
they're ready to cut you.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to get too deep in those crowds.
It's times like, yo, you better miss this free throw. I'm gonna show me the gun and everything. You like, come on, man.
Right.
I'm a kid, man. You know what I'm saying? It's what it is. It prepared me for the Big Ten.
Yeah, and it's probably even more so because you get to the Big Ten, no one's no one's flashing the Glock on you or anything like that in the stands. At least I hope not. You mentioned going to Illinois. I like that you mentioned that because that's where I went. Grew up going to those games with you guys played D. Brown, Darren Williams, Luther Head, guys like that. You had a great team. Drew Neitzel. You had Shannon Brown, obviously, same high school as D. Brown from Chicago. And that 2005 Final Four run's iconic for both schools. And I just remember being at that game in St. Louis, and MSU and Illinois fans were chanting back and forth, supporting each other before your guys' Carolina game. You remember that kind of, Big Ten show of support? And what do you remember about that experience in St. Louis?
Man. Yeah. One thing I will say, man, that Final Four court, it hit different. This is a funny reference, but it's like, you remember when you was a kid, how excited it used to be to go to the pool? Like the smell of the pool is like, yo, that's what it gave me. It gave me that type of vibe. I'm like, yo, I feel like I'm at the pool. You know what I'm saying? I feel a lot more loose. I'm about to, you know what I'm saying? Like the media even hit different. Like everything hit different at the Final Four, bro. It's like your legs feel looser. Like I did my thing. I remember balling out, you know what I'm saying? Like 24, 25 points, led the game scoring. And that Final Four experience was one to remember just because of what we had to do to get there, bro. We actually beat Duke and Kentucky in one weekend, dog. And it was a difficult thing to do, but it prepared me for life to learn how to make adjustments on the fly. But, you know what I mean? Allen Anderson, man, unfortunately, man, he was our second leading scorer at the time, man. He had a very severe injury, man. So he couldn't play up to his capabilities in that North Carolina game. And I believe if he was actually healthy, I think we would have won. But, man, playing against Rashad McCants, Sean May, and those guys and torching those guys was fun. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that was a good game.
That team was serious, too. I mean, McCants, May, Raymond Felton, Marvin Williams. But you mentioned, what you had to do to get there. That Kentucky game was crazy. I think Rondo was on that team. You dunked on JJ Redick. Like, please tell me that's an NFT.
It's coming.
I was going to say,
it's coming. If
there's any guy to pick to dunk on from that era of college basketball, I feel like everyone would pick JJ Redick. So you did something that I think everyone wished they could have done.
If people don't remember else about me, they're going to remember that. Remember that one.
Was that the biggest memory from that run for you, or what, making the run to the Final Four? What sticks out?
Definitely the Kentucky game, man. I think it was like 2 overtimes, very intense. You know what I mean? I do Sparks, I forgot his name, but we spent maybe 10, 15 minutes trying to reveal play, whether his foot was on the line or not. He had a 3 to send it into overtime. It was very, very intense, dog. The Kentucky game was probably the most memorable game. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, the JJ Redick dunk is going to be an NFT. I'm going to drop that on during the Elite Eight because that was the Elite Eight. So, yeah, I got to be strategic. Why you said the word strategic?
Strategic, yeah.
I don't know how to say that yet, but I'm going to drop that then. But, yeah, the Kentucky game was definitely the one I was like, that was the one to go to the Final Four, All
right, how do you get to the pool, though? Tell me, obviously, that was the time where you made it, right? That's big time. But you started as a freshman, sophomore, you weren't starting games. started 4 games as a sophomore before starting, I think, all of them as a junior, senior. So,
Yeah.
how did that leap take place, right? Like, where you go from that sophomore leap to a junior All Big Ten player?
Man, that's a good question because I remember the summer. Well, yeah, that whole sophomore year, I was actually hurt. Man, I had a hernia. I was playing with a double sports hernia on both sides, bro, and I had a fractured ankle that whole entire year, so I was never truly healthy. So I ended up having surgery during the summer, and yeah, I remember rehabbing for maybe 5-6 months, and then my junior year, I just took off. I'm not sure exactly why, I was able to, break out. I know, I mean, obviously I worked really hard, but, it was just timing, bro. I just think, in life, man, you have your moments when it's just your time. And it was the right time, and I took advantage of it. You did what I'm saying? So, yeah, that junior year was special. Obviously I got stronger, what I'm saying? I understood the system a lot more. Coach Izzo had a lot more faith and confidence in me during that time. Yeah. And it was just my time, bro,
So I don't know, being overseas in Vietnam, other side of the world, how much you get to watch MSU games nowadays, how close you pay attention. But what have you seen as far as Izzo over like the last 15 or so years? Is he more mellow now? Is he the same? What have you noticed as far as Coach Izzo, and his longevity?
I would definitely say, he's a lot more mellow, you know what I'm saying? And from the stories I've heard from guys, he's a lot less dramatic, you know what I'm saying, versus when we played, Izzo was pretty out there, man. So it's good to see that, at his older age, he's able to, adjust to the times, man, because let's keep it real, man. The kids ain't built like we were. Like you can't say the same things to these kids now and expect to, land recruits. So with us, Izzo will he will go there. You did what I'm saying in terms of just some of the things he would say in order to, whether it was motivation or it was just how he was. But nonetheless, I'm still excited to see him have success. You know what I'm saying? I'm always going to pull for, Coach Izzo to win, So, he's definitely much more mellow, I would say that.
All right. So you got the fire fit on right now. You got the fur.
Right.
I don't have pictures. What did you rock during the NBA draft? I feel like kind of since 2003 when they had the big suits, like NBA draft
yes,
fashion
sir.
really fluctuated. So what did you have?
I had the big wide Steve Harvey suit. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm talking about, you have to take the pants on, like just slide them right on. Like, yeah, it was a big cream suit, man. You know what I'm saying? And it was crispy at the time. You know what I'm saying? I looked like an R&B singer.
What's the first thing you bought with the NBA check?
First thing I bought.
First big purchase.
Man, yeah, I got that BMW. I got the blue BMW, the Beamer boy. Yeah, 750.
Okay, not bad. I've heard.
Yeah.
I've heard a wide range of things. Some people do the house. Some people will like keep it low key, get the Camry. BMW is right in the middle. I like that.
Nah, I got the BMW before I even got the crib. I was still in the hotel.
Looking back in your NBA career, also have a claim to fame of weren't you traded for J Kidd, a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, I was involved in that trade. Yeah, it was me. Who was involved? Me, Devin Harris, Trenton Hassel, and Sagana Diop to the Nets. And I think they got Antoine Wright, J Kidd, and who else was that? Yeah, I think that was it. I don't remember what.
I mean, at least, never want to be traded probably, but having J Kidd, a Hall of Famer on that line kind of eases the sting a little bit, I'd imagine.
Yeah, they won a championship some years after that, so it's okay. I was a part of the process, I guess.
So,
you know what I'm saying? Cool.
Fill me in. How did you get to Vietnam? Like you mentioned, you've been all over the world. Were you hooping overseas, and then where have you been, and kind of how'd you land there?
Yeah, man. 2017, I was actually living in Long Beach during the time, and then life was rough, bro. Yikes! I was going through a very tough time at that period, and then a friend connected me. He was like, "Hey, bro, we have an opportunity in China if you want to come over and coach kids and help a basketball academy." And at that time, I was like, "Yes, perfect, yes." You know what I'm saying? It was a golden opportunity. So I went over to China for maybe 8-9 months, and worked with worked with kids for a while. You know what I'm saying? I was doing music over there. I was doing a lot of shows with different artists and stuff like that. And then what happened was, we used to have to do visa runs to Vietnam, like every 60 days or so. And actually, I'm like, Vietnam is kind of cooler. Like, one day I ended up having the opportunity to spend some extended time in Vietnam. And I noticed how much more of a play, it just felt more of a fit for me. You know what I'm saying? It's like the opportunities at the time was more open. The people were so much more down to earth. You know what I'm saying? I just felt like a right place for me to be. You know what I'm saying? And it still is. So I decided to stay here, and create out here. That's when I created, I brought my basketball program here, and music and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm still here, and I plan on being here for years.
How's the talent?
It's a good place, man.
How's the talent on the court? You training some young hoopers over there, or what?
Yeah, it's a handful, man. Basketball is still bluegrass here, but it's growing. It's growing tremendously. But they have pro teams out here. They have the VBA, the Vietnam Basketball Association. So it's like they have some solid pros. But as far as the youth, they need a lot of work. But there's a few standouts, but nothing that's kind of like out of this world right now. Just because football is still the number one sport.
That's why you're out there, man. Gotta lift them up. Gotta create that grassroots movement. So Mo, last question, because I know you're joining me from vast time change, but I do have to ask, what is a bigger thrill, finding out you are Grammy nominated, or a big basketball accomplishment like dunking on JJ Redick / making a Final Four? Like what's a bigger rush for you?
They're both timely, bro. They both have their moments. You know what I'm saying? Definitely, it's too different. You know what I'm saying? Because like one is all the music accomplishment hit different just because it was something other than what I've done my whole life. So it showed me that I can actually be successful in something other than basketball, which is a big deal for me, and it should be a big deal for anybody who wants to grow as an individual, to be able to be well versed in other areas in their life. But the one that seems like it lasts a lot longer. It seems like the JJ Redick dunk. You know what I'm saying? Because once again, like people talk about it even to this day, like it was yesterday, just because it was JJ Redick. You know what I'm saying? Like JJ Redick at one point in time was probably the top 3 hated basketball player in college. You know what I'm saying? I had mad love for him. That was my guy. He still is. But he had to catch that one.
Yeah, for sure. And talk about a guy who's went from hated to mostly like JJ Redick through the podcast, through a long career. I feel like people kind of changed their opinion. I did of him, and it sounds like it's your guy. Well.
He's grown a lot. He's grown a lot since I've known him, and he's become a pretty well-versed person, man. So I'm actually happy to see his growth as well.
For sure. Wide range of interests, just like yourself. Mo, let the people know one more time before we jump off, where to find your website, where to find your collection, all that good stuff. You filled us in on the top.
Yeah. So the website right now is snmmoager.com. That's snmmoager.com. And that's sports and music with Mo Ager. You know what I'm saying? So basically sports, technology, and music website. It's a place where you can go get all things Mo Ager. You can actually customize your own brand there. That's another opportunity that I have on the website. It's like, you can go in there and actually create and customize your own look. So okay, you might not like what I'm bringing to the table. All right, but here you go. You can design whatever you want, man. Go ahead, and we can get that out to you nonetheless, man. But definitely, man, tap in, man. If anybody's looking to learn the NFT space, we have the course up and it's ready to roll. It's a 50-minute course. When you're done with this course, you're going to know exactly how to get it done. Hey, you'll know. Ain't no asking no questions. You're like, yeah, I know. Yeah, Mo showed me everything I need to hear. And it's entertaining. It's music. It's a production. It's a fire course, man. So definitely go tap in with that and cop my NFTs, because, if everybody start copying my NFTs, that's value for everybody and everybody get money. You heard?
Well, Mo, I know it'll be entertaining for sure. I've been entertained the last 30 minutes or so. It's great to get to know you. Thanks for filling me in on, really interesting life after basketball, and great to talk about your hooping career too, because I remember it well, and I always love getting to know new people on the show. So appreciate you, my guy.
Man, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me, Brody. Good luck with everything, homie.
All right. Thanks once again to Mo for taking some time really appreciate his willingness to share his experiences and willingness to jump on, especially time change. I don't even know what time it was over in Vietnam, but interesting guy. And I was grateful that he jumped on and shared his life update, his experiences, and his memories playing for Spartan basketball and in the NBA and overseas as well. So, and high school. Awesome stories about high school basketball. I love that stuff. Hearing about, some of these high stakes high school games when, you got all kinds of characters in the gym. I remember some of those days myself. It was not quite as intense as what he described in Detroit and some of those city rivalries. And I was nowhere near the caliber of player, but do have a affinity for high school basketball for sure and hearing those stories. So thanks to Mo. And we'll now toss it over to another Michigan State guy, Harold Shelton, talking Big Ten basketball, taking us inside. He is a stat guy, so he takes us inside the numbers, but also just gives us good, solid analysis. He is a talent when it comes to breaking down each and every team. He is deep in the weeds of these teams and their trends and everything, and he's a pro. So I'm going to toss it to Harold Shelton, and we'll get into the Big Ten basketball race right now. All right, very pleased to be joined once again by Harold Shelton, another Spartan on the show. Just had Mo Ager on. H, how's it going? How do you feel knowing we got one of your boys on the pod?
Always good to get our guys on the pod. So I was glad to hear that you got Mo on. We were in school at the same time, ran across each other a couple times on campus. Wouldn't say we're tight by any stretch, but obviously one of those where we cross each other, give the head nod, what's up kind of thing. So it's cool that he's on.
Well, I appreciated you giving me some background info on him. I remember him playing, but he was definitely before, a time where I would have known any finer details. So I love some of the urban legend type stuff you were able to drop my way. And I did ask him about your guys' high school games versus, was it Rennie?
Yeah, Renaissance versus Crockett.
Yeah. And so wait, remind me, were you on the same side of that rivalry? Did you go to rival high schools?
Rival high school. Okay,
that's what I thought, because I framed it that way. But then we talked about just now you running into him. I wasn't sure. So he spoke obviously very highly, of the culture around those games and, how there'd be maybe some threats, implicit or not, thrown out in the game and just painted a classic, high school basketball picture for me. And I'm glad you brought that up because it was entertaining.
Nice. Yeah, it was some crazy games. And it was one of those where you're in the same district. And so you kind of knew whoever won this particular game was probably going to wind up winning the state title, even though it was so early. And his team, knocked out Renaissance and they went on and won state that year. And you're like, dang, that, that could have been my team. But well, I knew he was going to state after that. So I'm like, well, at least now I can cheer for him. And hopefully he can get us some big time wins, which he did.
All right. So we went through those memories and some of his memories at MSU. What are your favorites of Mo? Because obviously he played on some great teams. And as we talked about with him, it's not like he was a star right away. He had to kind of blossom into being a Big Ten star.
Yeah, it was funny because I remember, I don't want to say his freshman year, because like you said, it took him a little while, but he kind of had a breakout in the tournament against Florida when they were a 7 seed. And, they beat them by 20 in the second round and nobody saw that coming. And they got to the Elite Eight as a 7 seed that year. But I think it was the 05 team where he and Shannon Brown and Allen Anderson wound up being the big three guys on that team. And, he had the crazy dunk over JJ Redick in the Sweet 16. And, they wound up beating Duke and Kentucky back to back in the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight to get to the Final Four. And I just remember, me and my buddies are look, it's in St. Louis. So if they get it done, we're going to drive down. And so I just remember following that run and then going to see them in person.
Yep. We were both there for that Final Four. Kind of feel bad for that dome now. It's kind of a rundown. Once the Rams left, some of the memories faded too in the downtown St. Louis, but it was popping back then. So yeah, great memories, obviously. And he was at excellent guest to have on. Definitely one of the more unique guests we've talked to. I don't know if you knew this. He lives in Vietnam now.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah. I didn't know
A
either.
place I wanted to go, but I didn't know that he was living there. That's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't know either. He just casually dropped it in the interview. So definitely fun talking to him and reminiscing on a, classic Michigan State run and team. And I don't know if Izzo has one of those this year, but he definitely has a good team, a solid team, and justifying, we talked about last week and question, are they really top 10? Are they that type of caliber team? And losing to Northwestern, we thought maybe not. And then they, I think, proved themselves once again Friday night against Wisconsin, and it really kind of reflects like the whole league, right? Ebbs and flows, maybe no true elite teams at the top, but a lot of really good ones who are going to rise and fall throughout the year and probably be among a pack of 3 or 4 at least contenders the way it's shaping up now, looking toward the last 6 weeks or so of the season.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like you mentioned, when they lost to Northwestern, they had a bunch of time off after that. You're kind of looking like, well, if they lose to them, then, you got Wisconsin coming up and Illinois and Michigan. And, you're kind of wondering, will this be the start of a skid? And then the way that they responded against Wisconsin, it's completely different than how they played in the early part of the Big Ten season. They dominated on the boards, and then they out-rebounded them 39-20. The defense was great. Multiple guys involved. Just the effort level, the energy level was just much better than it was in the Northwestern game and the Minnesota game. Even though they wound up beating the Gophers, like it took, a last second shot to do it. So just the effort was there. They cut down on the turnovers after the first couple of minutes too, which certainly helped. So I think they're a good team, but they have to play really hard to be good. Like they can't just go by on talent. They're not talented enough to just go and play a C game and expect to win. Like they all have to play really, really hard because they don't have like an alpha. They don't have a guy that's like, okay, well, you can hop on my back and, we'll figure it out tonight. Like they all have to play hard and figure it out together in order for them to, get to their potential.
Yeah. Friday night, Tyler Wall being out.
That's a big loss.
Had an impact. I mean, Kofi was out for Illinois and they lost to Maryland. So I didn't get a chance to see much of the Wisconsin Michigan State game, but how much of that impact do you think it had? And what do you just think about Wisconsin after seeing them, really, really up close, knowing you had a heightened interest in that game?
Well, I thought with Wall out, like the 4s and 5s definitely struggled to replace his production. I think Wall was kind of playing his best basketball of his career before the injury. He was a guy that was averaging, 15, 16 points a game over the last, few weeks. And so you take that away. Now it's like, okay, we can load up on Johnny Davis. Brad Davison played well. He made shots, but they really, really made life hard on Davis. And they, you'd see Gabe Brown on him. Hogarth was on him. Max Christie was on him. And they just were able to rotate bodies and make things really, really hard. Now, without that third scorer, with Wall being out, it just made Wisconsin's offense struggle like a lot. And, they jumped out to that 8-0 lead. And then in the blink of an eye, Michigan State's up double digits because they couldn't make shots. And I think whenever Wall does come back, I think we'll get to see like the real version of Wisconsin. But I thought what Michigan State did on Friday was still impressive, whether he played or not. Yeah,
a lot of great games from like Thursday on, starting with the Purdue-Indiana game. We'll definitely talk about that. Honestly, let's just get into it right now because I don't want to preview too much. I want to expand on Michigan State a little more maybe, but don't want to preview their game against Illinois on Tuesday night because this episode will not be out in time. We don't even know if Kofi's back. So kind of worthless discussion there. So let's look back still and what that win for Indiana means. Purdue, since then we've seen Purdue bounce back against Northwestern, Indiana fall against Michigan. And right, it's like I talked about, just kind of those mini rises and falls on the EKG chart of the season. So what do you think that means, just to snap a really dominant stretch for Purdue and get that in Mike Woodson's first try, a signature win like that?
Yeah, I think it was really big for Indiana just because obviously that's your biggest game or your biggest rival. You play them twice, but that's your biggest game every year. And, you had lost 9 straight to them. And, a lot of times some of the games weren't close. And, you lose by double digits at home to these guys. And that clearly doesn't sit well. So the fact that they were able to, Mike Woodson's first try, to just get off the schneid and get that W was big for them. And that's a win that's going to hold up well in March when you're starting to compare resumes. Who knows what Indiana will be over these next, 10, 15 games in terms of tournament resume and stuff like that. But if they're like closer to the bubble, like that win will be able to say a lot for them. And I thought it was really, really good that they won that game with Trace Jackson Davis pretty much being a non-factor. It kind of goes to show like other guys can step up and you can still win with defense, which is what they've done most of the year, the Michigan game notwithstanding.
You think Indiana's a tournament team as it stands now? They're right kind of on the, 9-10 seed outskirts right now, looking at maybe advanced metrics like Ken Pom, in that 30 range, you're usually in pretty safely, but, it can kind of go either way depending on how the rest of the season turns out. Obviously, the Purdue win helps a lot. I think the Michigan loss dinged them, just losing to a team that had been scuffling and losing convincingly. So just eye test now. Do you think they are pretty much on track for a bid?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're safely in, but I still think they are a tournament team. I think also having the Ohio State win with the Purdue win certainly helps. I think they need to continue to take care of business at home and try to steal a couple of these road games, because that's been the biggest problem. They've had a chance to get a big win on the road, whether it was Syracuse, whether it was Iowa, whether it was Penn State. You had chances to win those games and you didn't do it. And so they have to find a way to get a marquee win or two away from Bloomington in order to feel better about their tournament hopes going down the stretch.
Yeah, while we will not preview Tuesday night's game at all, it's an opportunity for Illinois to get a signature win because they don't have one. Let's be real. Like, they had an opportunity against Purdue, couldn't get it done, had no non-conference wins that really stand out. So they have a nice record, nice Big Ten start for sure, but that obviously took a step back, losing to Maryland, and need a signature win, and they're going to have some opportunities because it starts to get tougher. They go to Mackey the next couple of weeks, I believe. Michigan State is a big one, Wisconsin as well. And it's one of those things, man, like Maryland just has their number. And I think I've pinned down why, for whatever reason. Illinois has not been able to figure out how to guard these, even though Mark Turgeon's gone, these Turgeon-type players that are very versatile and can play 2 through 4. Before it was your Aaron Wiggins and Darren Morsell, and then the last 3 or 4 games, Dante Scott has cooked them. And Illinois has great center play and good guard play, small guard play. Don't have a lot of guys that can square up on the wings, and Maryland has really made them pay. And even in the game where Illinois beat them a couple weeks ago, Illinois did not look great, trailed at halftime, and kind of snuck out of there because Kofi dominated. Kofi's out. Maybe the result's different, but Maryland was convincing and showed that the season is not, a complete tailspin. They are clearly still playing hard for, with Danny Manning in charge. And even though it was not a traditional home environment, right? Like, fans are kind of in wait and see mode there. They got it done against a ranked team. So that kind of ownership of the Terps over Illinois continues. And it's one of those things that I think I finally pinned down for sure the root cause of that.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. And when I heard Kofi was out, I was like, ooh, this could be a problem, because you look at the first game, and like you said, Illinois trailed at half and Kofi dominated and they were able to get away. No, they won by 12. And Kofi was in foul trouble in that game. But when he was on the floor, they outscored Maryland by 28. And they only won by 12. So that means when he sat, they were outscored by 16. He doesn't play in the game the other night. They lose by 16. So, I mean, you could see, without him being that dominant post presence, that they really struggled to defend and to score. And so, like you said, in that kind of matchup where you could switch a bunch of stuff and you got, 6'8" bigs bringing you out to the 3-point line and you don't really have a guy to guard that, it could be a problem. And I think Maryland has played really, really hard in a lot of these games outside of the Michigan game. I think Michigan just took it to them, and that might be more about Michigan than it is about Maryland, and we could probably get into that. But Maryland's still playing hard under Danny Manning. They have a lot of work to do to get back in that tournament conversation. But you beat Illinois, you beat Florida, you found a way to rally at Northwestern. It looked like they could have caved against Wisconsin at home, came all the way back, took the lead, didn't quite finish the game, but you could tell they're still playing really hard for him.
Yeah, I mean, they have talent. They're not a traditional bottom of the conference Power 5 team like that just is completely devoid of talent. Like they have dudes on that team, and if they continue to play up to some of their capabilities, they will be a headache for a lot of the top teams in the conference going forward. And we'll get to Michigan, like you said. One other good game, don't want to completely gloss over Rutgers and Minnesota. I feel like that was one of those that like both teams kind of had to have to keep the tournament flame, really kind of alive. Like there's a long way to go, obviously, but it's one of those that like both teams I'm sure went into and were like, all right, we got to have this one. And it was close. And, now you look at it, Rutgers 11-7. They had those early season losses. Minnesota's got a decent record, 11-5. Really good if you look at their preseason projections. And both, 2-5 conference record, though, that's where they're going to have to pick up some ground because they did have that losing streak. So, I don't know. You agree that one of those games for both, they kind of both needed to have, and the winner will now be in much better shape going forward?
See, I thought more was on the line for Rutgers than Minnesota, just because the way that Minnesota is constructed, they really don't have much of a bench, and you just kind of wonder over a 20-game brutal conference schedule, how many wins can they really get? And they did a good job in getting a bunch of wins early, and then even when conference play started, they won at Michigan, and so you're like, okay, maybe Minnesota could be something. I think you saw some of that depth or lack of depth take its toll. And I was really, really impressed that they even won this game. They had a game postponed earlier in the week. Didn't even know if they were going to have enough guys to play in that Rutgers game. It wasn't until the morning of where they had a player who was on IVs wind up being able to play. And then they had 3 guys play 40 minutes, 2 others play 37, and they still find a way to win that game. And I think that hurt Rutgers because you just come off the Iowa win. You got a chance to build a lot of momentum. You got some really bad losses in non-conferences. So it's like, okay, now if we can start piling up some of these wins against some unranked teams, we give ourselves some wiggle room before we get into this brutal stretch where I believe they have, it's like Michigan State, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Illinois, Purdue, Michigan, Wisconsin, like all in a row. So they had a chance to stack up some wins and, blew a golden opportunity.
Yeah, and Rutgers too. Just looking at where they are program-wise, like some of these guys are upperclassmen. They lost some of their upperclassmen last year, and you just don't know. With this group, obviously Baker's is about done after this year. It's a senior, and you just don't know, right? Like what the next Rutgers team is going to look like in the kind of second part of the Pikiell era, because the build has happened. They have reached kind of last year that. The peak, and we're seeing now if they can kind of dig deep and put a second half of the season stretch together, because you want to see this team get back at the tournament, especially how heartbreaking it was against Houston last year.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about how close they were to winning that game, I mean, and the way the bracket opened up, like Rutgers had a legit chance of making the Final Four, the way that bracket broke down. They had a lead against Houston most of that second half and let it go. And then you see Houston go on, and I think they beat a 12 and an 8 or something like that to get to the Final Four. And like that could have been Rutgers.
What other Big Ten team was in that side of the bracket? I can't remember.
I can't remember either. You can tell me later, but they really had a chance there. And then they lose Jacob Young, they lose Miles Johnson, both in the portal, and so you wonder how they're gonna look. They lose to UMass, they lose to Lafayette, and you're like, dang, this isn't looking good. And then they start getting some wins. They beat Michigan. They hold this Iowa explosive offense under 50. And you're like, oh, man, they might have found something. Then you let Peyton Willis go off for 30. You got these chances to win these games. You kind of waste a good performance from Geo Baker. And so, like you said, like we don't really know what they're going to be in the future. And you got a chance to kind of, have another building block by getting to the tournament in consecutive years. And that's a game you couldn't let slip away.
I mean, that bracket is so bizarre to look at. I mean, Oregon State made it to the Elite Eight, and they are complete trash this year. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. I'm saying, like, as soon as it happened, I said, man, they blew a chance at the Final Four because the way the whole thing opened up.
Right. All right. Well, moving on, I just want to revisit Michigan real quick because it lends itself nicely to your rivalry game. Is this the rescheduled one this weekend? Or is it?
No, this was already scheduled.
Okay, so this is at Michigan.
Michigan State.
Right.
The one
Michigan
in
State
Ann Arbor was postponed.
Yep. It's all coming back to me now a couple weeks ago. When you guys are so close, it's hard to even, 45-minute bus ride. Like,
exactly.
Not a huge deal if one is postponed. But you guys got the matchup this weekend. Are you scared of Michigan? They were looking better. They got Hunter Dickinson back. Obviously he missed the Illinois game. They got a convincing win over Indiana. Are you more concerned now than you would have been for that postponed game a couple weeks back?
I wouldn't say more concerned, but they definitely are playing much better than before the shutdown. I think they found something in the Illinois game, even though they lost. It looked like the first time they actually competed for like a full 40 minutes. We saw them play well in halves, here and there, but usually the second half, things kind of went away, and it was because they didn't guard people. I didn't think that was the case against Illinois. I just think they kind of ran out of bodies without Dickinson being in there. But I think Devontae Jones has played much better. I think Caleb Houston has played much better, and that's allowed Dickinson to kind of, impose his will. I think it was much harder when he was like the only real threat on the floor. But now when you got other guys playing well beside him, I think it makes them much more dangerous. And I think them not having good point guard play was the biggest issue for them in their struggles. But Jones playing much better has kind of stabilized things. And so they're going to be really confident. I know they get Northwestern before they play Michigan State, but it's at home. You would think they would win that game. So they'll have a lot of confidence going into that game Saturday.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one to watch. Another one this weekend, Ohio State and Purdue. And Ohio State, like by no fault of their own, is kind of a team that is just forgotten right now. I mean, they played IUPUI as just kind of a buffer, right? Like they needed to play somebody with all these cancellations and reschedulings, and another one postponed against Nebraska this past week. Play Minnesota before the Purdue game, so they'll be favored there. But what do we think about Ohio State and just getting a step up in competition? And do you think they're going to be up for it after just kind of a lull here midway through the season?
See, I'm not gonna sell Minnesota short in that game.
I'm not either. Let me look. Are they? I saw Minnesota. Yeah, they're at Minnesota. Never mind.
They're at Minnesota.
When I said favored, I thought they was going to be at Ohio State. It is not. That'll probably be a very tough game too.
Yeah, I still think Ohio State will be favored, but just the way that they played on the road, like they barely escaped against Nebraska, needed overtime. They got blown out in Bloomington, pretty much blown out in Madison. And so you just kind of wonder what they're going to look like. It'll be 9 days between the IUPUI game and the Minnesota game, which could help in terms of if they had any guys that were nicked up, maybe they are ready to play. You would think EJ Liddell should have a pretty big game, but, the Big Ten, we've seen a lot of upsets happen already. And so I'll be curious to see, how they get through the Minnesota game before the Purdue game. And speaking of Purdue, they get Iowa before they play Ohio State too. I think it's the same day as Ohio State, Minnesota.
I would push them in December.
Yeah, without Keegan Murray.
Yep.
So I'll be curious to see what happens there on the road. They had a bounce back against Northwestern. Jaden Ivey didn't play in that game, so we'll see if he's ready to go. He played the Indiana game with a hip pointer, I believe. And so we'll see if he's back after, basically being off a week. It's getting to that point. We're getting close to February now where guys are beat up and you're just trying to get through this 20-game grind. And I wouldn't be shocked at pretty much any result at this point.
All right, last thing, H, before we wrap up, you mentioned this to me a couple weeks ago, so I've had my sights on it, but something to keep an eye on with your guy, Coach Izzo, closing in on a major milestone. Lay it out for the people in case people aren't aware.
Yeah, so you would think maybe early to mid February he gets it. He has 658 career wins right now. So he's 3 away from tying Bob Knight, 4 away from passing him for the most wins by a Big Ten head coach all time. And it's pretty crazy when you think about it, just because, he took over from Judd Heathcote and he was this unknown guy. And it looked like after 2 or 3 years, he might get fired. He was losing games to like University of Detroit, and they had missed the tournament the first 2 years. And you're like, I don't know if this is going to work. Then they win the Big Ten in year 3, and he's been rolling ever since. And so I think when you think of him, he's probably the second best coach of all time in the Big Ten behind Bob Knight. I think a fun Mount Rushmore would be to figure out who's 3 and 4. But I feel like those two are kind of cemented already. And so it would be fitting if he did it against Indiana. I believe that is a possibility. Wisconsin coming up is also a possibility, considering that they were a big thorn in his side during the Bo Ryan years. But we'll see how it plays out. He's a really emotional guy, so I'll be curious to see if the school has anything planned that makes him break down. He loves a good cry. So we'll see if any, the school has anything planned, or former players wind up coming back for it if it winds up being at home. So I know I got some work to do to make sure we are buttoned up at the network.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I'm sure we'll cover it in earnest here. I know we got some plans on the social platforms for that. So thanks for keeping us wise to it. And likewise with everything Big Ten basketball, like you said, February coming up. It's the home stretch almost. Not quite. Like, we're still in kind of the middle dog days, but once February gets cooking, it's one of the, everyone hates February. Like, I think it's the worst month of the year just weather wise, because it's always brutal here, but Big Ten basketball helps me through it, and it is the shortest month. So it'll be March soon before we even know it.
That's for sure. And I think February we also get the first peek behind the curtain of the top 16 reveal from the committee, so we can really see where some of these Big Ten teams wind up. I know Mike DeCourcy always says he hates talking about bracketology until Valentine's Day, but we're coming up on that now. I know he kind of he's obligated to put out brackets now, but I feel like he doesn't really like to talk about it until Valentine's Day, but we're about 3 weeks away from that now. And so once February gets here, it's more about conference race and tournament resumes, in or out, bubble. All of these words start popping back into the culture. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and I tweeted it yesterday. I think it was Saturday during the Kentucky-Auburn game. It was the first CBS basketball game I'd watched this year, and always every year it's like it's like Groundhog Day, where you see the groundhog for the first time. For me, it's hearing the CBS theme song for the first time, because they use the same one for the tournament. Iconic, and it kind of gets me, gets the juices flowing a little bit. Sometimes, once in a while, I'll hear it if Purdue, or I feel like some schools have been in the CBS Sports Classic. Ohio State obviously is in that every year, but Purdue's in some CBS Sportsnet tournament in some high school gym every year during Thanksgiving. So maybe I'll hear it in November, December. This year, 6 more weeks of winter. I felt like I didn't hear the song until late January. So I was very glad to hear it, and I can't wait to put it on repeat starting when the Big Ten gets more of these CBS games. I know Michigan and Indiana were one of them as well yesterday.
Yeah, like you said, once you start getting some more of those, it really starts to feel okay, we're fully in the basketball season. We were so bogged down with football, and then, there's kind of the transition away from that. You kind of decompress everything, what happened, yada, yada, yada. And now it's okay, we're full basketball mode now. Like you said, CBS games, you start to hear the theme music, the road to the Final Four animation, all that stuff. And you're like, all right, these next 2 months are going to be fun.
Love it. All right, we'll keep talking about it. Let's get someone in New Orleans, and we'll see you on Bourbon Street. Appreciate it, H. We'll talk soon, because we got another one of these to do very soon.
All right, sounds good, man.
All right, thanks to Harold, and thanks again to Mo for joining. A couple of Spartan dogs, as they call them, and guys who are around the same age. I know Harold mentioned crossing paths with Mo in Detroit in high school, and Mo's team getting the best of him in high school basketball and going all the way to state. Small world. Anyone who operates in the sports world a little bit, kind of realizes how small it can be sometimes. So cool to get them on. Appreciate H for giving me some background info on Mo that I might not otherwise know, and appreciate H for also talking Big Ten basketball. So we're in it now. It's fast and furious every week pretty much, and it's a great time of year. I know it's winter, I know it's dreary, but one of my favorite times of year is knowing there's going to be great Big Ten basketball games on pretty much every night, and we inch toward March. So love it, and it'll be even better when we get to March and see some of that snow start to melt and the games be even more meaningful. So thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Julie Bronder for stitching the show together. Quick reminder, if you've not already, please, if you were so inclined, leave us a rating or review on the podcast platforms where we're available. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And then you can also view the Take 10 podcast and our guests on YouTube. View these interviews, in their entirety. On the Big Ten Network YouTube channel, there's a playlist section for all the Take 10 podcast episodes. Thanks to Zoom and it's wonders, we can now do all these on video. So take a look at that if you want to add a visual element to this audio show. All right, that'll do it for this week. We actually have a special episode coming up at the end of the week or early next week, so not as much time between episodes. So we'll get back at you soon with another guest, and until then, we'll talk to you next time here on the Take 10 podcast.